Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neslyn Johnson, the CEO of Ebek Language Laboratories, a company based out in Chennai. We have our headquarters in Trichy, and it's a real privilege and honor to stand before you and talk about better learning outcomes through analysis. In today's competitive world, when you look at a classroom, you have different categories of children in one classroom with different levels. And these children are put through different learning outcomes, which they have to master, move from level to level, from grade to grade. And what's happening today is because it's become so competitive and so fast moving that teachers in a classroom are faced between these two learning outcomes, knowledge outcomes and assessment outcomes. The focus has now changed from a student acquiring knowledge to actually a student being put through multiple assessments. Why is this happening? Let's look at it very practically. I have a daughter who is in grade 9, studying in a very elite school in Chennai. She's in grade 9, and next year she'll be doing her board exams. So the focus of the teacher, with a lot of pressure from the management, is to try and complete the grade 9 portions in about 6 months, so that the grade 10 portions can be started in grade 9 itself. You complete half in grade 9 itself, complete the remaining half when she moves to grade 10, and then focus on assessments. Assessments after assessments after assessments, preparing the child for the board exams. So what is lost here is, in this process, a child actually does not acquire knowledge. She has no time to acquire knowledge. My daughter came up to me the other day and told me, "Dad, you know, today my teacher completed 2 units in one day. 2 units in one day. And I've not understood even one. So now can you sit with me and help me out?" That's a practical reality of what students are going through today. There's so much of pressure on them. And this is not the fault of the teacher or the management, it's the fault of the system by itself. Look at the role of a teacher in a classroom. Multidimensional. She has to teach, she has to discipline students, manage students, plan extracurricular activities, and then it's assessments and assessments and assessments. And what's happening here is, like when I started my speech, I spoke about different levels of students in one classroom. So through this process, teachers have no time to analyze exactly where each individual student is going towards. So what's actually missing? Through this very extensive role that a teacher is playing in a classroom, the thing of analyzing a student's performance in a classroom is missing today. Now, there's a lot of technology. There are a lot of startup companies, a lot of companies that have introduced technology to try and help bridge this gap for teachers, for managements of different schools. Now, Ebek, as a company, has introduced one of the platforms called Tutor 365. How does this platform help teachers in a classroom? Tutor 365 is an online assessment and analytical program. It's introduced to bridge a gap between learning outcomes and assessments. So what it actually does is, when students log in, they have the option of doing multiple tests. You have a 1 hour duration, you have a 2 hour duration test, and you have a 3 hour duration test. Once a student completes her test, in a normal scenario, a teacher would go on to the next test. After evaluating it, the teacher would go on to the next test. But what this program, what this platform does, is analyze the student's performance in every subject. And it gives the teacher, the student, and the parent a clear picture of the weaknesses of a student in a particular subject. And through this process, through this analysis, a teacher can actually plan her remedial classes. So what we're trying to do is to wipe out the time spent by a teacher in preparing assessments, evaluating these assessments, and then the most important thing which is missing in a school system is analyzing the student's performance. So today, teachers using these kind of platforms can focus more on helping students acquire knowledge and helping them to apply it, because there is technology to help teachers with assessments and analysis. Now this can be used in different specters of a student's life cycle, in school or in college. Let me give you a different example. Let's take reading, for example. In a normal school scenario, what do we find with regards to reading? There's a library, and in this library, you have different sections for different grades. So you have a section for grade 1, you have a section for grade 2, you have a section for grade 3, and so on. And students would be advised to go to the library, pick up a book from the relevant section and start reading. But what schools and teachers do not realize is that every student has a different reading age level. And there's technology to assess a student's reading age level. And based on a student's reading age level, the teacher can then guide students to actually pick up the right level book for the student to read, so that understanding and learning would have a better outcome. Star Ebek. This is a reading program in collaboration with a US, UK based company called Renaissance. Now through this program, what we do is we first conduct a diagnostic test for the students. It's an online test. And based on the performance of the students in the diagnostic test, an analysis is developed in the form of a report. And if you look at this analysis, this girl is a year 5 student, which means she must be around 10 years of age. But through her performance in the diagnostic test, she has scored about 285 points, and as a result, her actual reading age level is only 7 years, 7 months. Now, in a normal school scenario, this girl would be reading books that a 10-year-old would be reading, and she wouldn't understand it. She should be reading books that a 7-year-old should be reading. So through this analysis, the system also tells you what is the ZPD level, the level of books that a student should read. So if schools can invest in technology that could analyze students' performances in different fields, then learning outcomes would be much better. So analysis is very, very important, and technology has to be introduced in schools to help teachers analyze students' performances better. Thank you very much.